Hey, what's up everyone? This is Midnight Brands coming to you with prep analysis for Friday, September 9th. Hope everybody's had a good week. It's been obviously a shortened week here. Before we dive into the prep analysis for Friday, just want to gently remind everybody, everything we walk through is just for entertainment and educational purposes only. Nothing we do or say on here is any guarantee of future results, or past performance is going to guarantee any kind of future results or accuracy. We are not financial analysts or advisors or anything of the sorts. Do not take anything as buy or sell or do X or Y recommendations. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the point, right? I mean, everybody should hopefully understand those kind of things. We'll have to just continue to say them to make sure that anybody that joins new, and probably this weekend we'll get a nice little blurb put up on the screen there for everybody to see. With that, we will move along into breadth review. And one of the things I did want to mention about these RoyalFlush zones that we may have skipped over in some of the earlier videos. The whole point and creation of the RoyalFlush zones were to scan through those list of tickers out there. Right now, I think we're scanning about 400 tickers, give or take, and we'll increase that. But also just trying to keep it focused on ones that have any kind of a significant weighting to the various ETFs, like XLY or XLF or SPY, QQQ as an example. And so nothing in any of these RoyalFlush zones mean that, ooh, we're going to hit this level, or ooh, you know. It's just the point of them are to highlight areas of interest. If we come into one of these, you know, you've prepared for it. You've got the evidence and the other things ahead of time. So if and when we do hit that zone for the day, you can take some action. You can be prepared to act upon whatever you might see in there. So that's really the point of the RoyalFlush zones. Again, as we continue on, we'll prepare and share more information here. But that's really kind of the main point of it. And with that, we will get into the breadth ticker review. Starting off, we'll get into Apple. Apple has, again, we kind of talked through a nice little hold of the daily anchored VWAP here. There was a transfer trend line on here, but it really, I mean, it got violated. If you go through and look on here, it was kind of going through a touched here, just barely missed this one. And came up, but I mean these last 2 days have just kind of broken through that transfer trend line there. In any event, for tomorrow, because we close out the week, it should be interesting, right? We've got a nice little bit of structure kind of in there. That's a little bit higher, but really the key zone is going to be right here, up where we've got full ADRs. We've got a daily anchored VWAP coming down up there. And so that'll be the nice kind of big zone for Apple up at that 158.84 to 158.45. Seems like a stretch, but you know, based upon this average daily range here, it's not out of the question. I mean, a $4 move on Apple is nothing, and you can see, like, even the last few days, we haven't even really had some extremes up there. So be interesting to keep an eye on that one. Next up is SDS. SDS tracks the ultra short of the S&P 500. There's also SPXS out there as well. It's another one that tracks the negative side for that. So lots of different ETFs. We were having a conversation earlier today, and folks were even comparing UPRO to SPXL. Both do the same thing. So go out there, do your research, figure out which one looks better. In this case, the SDS one, its interesting zone is going to be at the highs, and so it's up there at that 45.21 to 45 level. You might give it a little bit of room. You can see there's actually a swing anchored VWAP coming down just below as well. And that probably would even come in here and join for tomorrow. It depends. Right now we're gapping up just a little bit overnight in futures already. We closed. Oh gosh, where was it? We closed right around like 4,005 or something like that. And we bumped up all the way to 40.20, so have to see kind of what and how we do. I mean, we keep going up, I mean SDS is going to be falling obviously since it is tracking the inverse. I'm actually going to skip IDBM, and I might hit on some of the energy related breadth ones in here. So SCO, Sierra Charlie Oscar, was one that that tracks some of the inverse for oil and energies and whatnot. And remember, yeah, so its key zone was up here, quite a ways up here actually. So we have to keep an eye on what oil's been doing and kind of how it's going to be performing. That should be an interesting one. It's got some historical stuff back here, as you can see on the daily chart. But there's not been a whole lot of, you know, recent interaction on that 30-minute chart. I mean, this is a 30-minute chart going all the way back to July, and there's nothing in there. So, be an interesting one with SCO at 29.15 to 29.08. ERX was another kind of energy ETF to keep an eye on over there, and that one here also had the interesting zone up at the highs. You can see there. It's got a daily anchor VWAP right at the top. The swing A VWAP. Again, these are two different time frames. There's something to understand, right? A swing A VWAP at a 30-minute volume is going to have, you know, just how it aggregates the volume and the price and stuff over time. So you can see where the delta is between these. So anywho, the zone for ERX is going to be up there at the highs at that 57.56 to 57.16. And clear above, I mean, it's got a decent amount of space until the next kind of area of interest, which isn't as high of a priority scoring zone, but it's up there. You start seeing some structure if you look left, kind of what's been happening there. And then moving on next was XLE, the energy ETF. XLE's key zone of interest, or RoyalFlush zone, was down here at the lows, and you can see today, I mean, it came in and it kind of opened and touched in that area and took off, and then just kind of solid. It didn't really do a lot after, you know, it's like 12:30, 1 o'clock. We had that one kind of kill candle almost, and it wasn't really, like, it just got bought right back up, and pretty much everything, ES, SPY, Qs. So it'd be interesting tomorrow. I mean, this key level here is right at that low area of where today's was, and it also has 50-day EMA in there. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. And then I'm also just going to pull up and hit on SPY real quick, since that should be on everybody's radar. If you're doing any kind of trading, really, you should have SPY up to see what and how the overall market is performing and what's going on there. And so SPY's level tomorrow is also towards the lows. You can see this morning, or sorry, not this morning, this afternoon, when it dipped. I mean, it came down and came into this area here. I mean, you have to look and see how everything else in breadth is doing, right? I mean, if SPY is pulling, you know, keep an eye on what Apple is doing, because it's the biggest weighted component in the SPY. But I'd be cautious if we come back down here and we try to test this again. I mean, you know, came up this morning, came back down, tested, and got sucked right back up on a 30-minute closing candle, and held this kind of supply and demand area there, which is what the shaded box, this shaded box here is right there. I can select it. That's a supply and demand zone that tracks, again, just where that is, or what it sounds like, supply and demand. So I would start being cautious if we come in here, and if we came back down and tested, I'd really probably want to see the top of that zone, if at all. If you're playing for the bull case and trying to shoot up towards, you know, hell, you know, if you try to see the 50-day up here or something like that, or even go crazy and see one of these other bigger zones up here. So I think with that, we will stop with the breadth review, and then start to kick it over to the overall review. There's a couple of interesting ones in there today, and I think we'll hit on one actually that was in yesterday's prep as well. In fact, why don't we just start off with that one, and then we'll come back over to some of the others here. And so, in particular, the one that I know was on yesterday's review was actually BSX. And this actually still is a pretty big kind of highlighted zone for tomorrow here, but this was the key zone that was highlighted yesterday. I mean, this speaks to the example, right? What if you come down into that area? Well, shit, if we were prepared for it, like we were last night with the Royal Flush zone, we came down into this zone, and then we had, you know, a $1.60 move. You know, I mean, that's a really good size move. I mean, you weren't risking much, even if you took kind of the bottom edge of that candle, you came down. I mean, that's what, 20 cents, 30 cents. I mean, 20, 30 cents a risk to make a $1.60, give or take. I mean, that's a nice little risk versus return. Then I'll flip back over to the rest of it. So the next one up was Hershey, HSY. HSY has got its bigger zone up here at that 227.45 to 227.10 area. It's been doing a bit. You can see, like, it. I mean, it's still got decent range. I mean, $4 or $5 a range is pretty good, but it's just kind of been in this same block for the last while, right? 222 to 230. I mean, a couple pokes above, a couple of pokes below with some wicks, but it's just kind of been, like, you know, hanging out in this area sans a little bit of stuff back here in June. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. We've got, again, what we would term as the look with 20-day EMA and a daily anchored VWAP triggering right in that area. Next up is Schlumberger, SLB. Schlumberger's bigger level was down here at the lows. And you can see it's got the 50-day EMA in there. We've got a swing anchored VWAP again, which is, I know that because the algorithm draws swing anchor VWAPs that it's automatically calculating for us in those white dashed lines from the lows. And so we've got this bigger zone down here, and you can see it's had, you know, a little bit of structure here looking left. Should be an interesting one if we were to come down and tag that. I mean, it could be saying a little bit of a higher low versus earlier this week. So, you know, maybe we could even do something where we get cute and we go up here and then we set up for that kind of a move into the next week or so. So be interesting one to keep an eye on. Again, that Schlumberger at that 37.50 to 37.39 area. And really, if you're below this, I mean, you've got a lot of open space. I mean, say that it looks bigger than it is, but there's a decent amount of space between here and that next kind of zone below with a supply and demand and a gap fill. Next on the list was American Express, AXP, at that 155.20 to 154.91 area. And that's going to be up here at the highs, certainly within range. It's actually really interesting because you've got both the 50-day and the 20-day EMA in here. And we're below, this key zone tomorrow is actually below the two ADRs, average daily ranges. So you could be interesting where you could potentially come up into here, tag this, and then fade back down, or you could tag it and then sit in there, and then maybe it's a flip it type of look where it comes up and just consolidates and hangs in to ultimately go up and try to grab these ADRs, which are certainly within the average daily range because it's only $4. And if we open about where we close, 153, I mean, that's definitely within reach. Oops, clicked on the wrong one twice there. Next on the list was DHR, and that it was the Danaher Corporation. I had to remind myself. Danaher actually had two levels, and I debated actually about do we include both of them or not. But really, because it had almost a $14 move today, and you can see this was definitely up there in kind of that extreme ADR level. And we calculate these by looking back over the last several years. The kind of orange horizontal line there tells us kind of what the average ADR is on a percentage basis. And then from there, we calculate out and show, like, okay, what are the different extremes? And in this case, the first extreme is about that 3%, 3.25 give or take. And then this next one up here, I mean, we hit that today. It was about 4.8% is the daily extreme. So interesting one up there. It's definitely a bit of a bigger zone. You can see there's going to be some structure and whatnot. And looking back through here, so definitely be one if we decide to come up and tag. You know, how do we interact with the gap fill from back here a couple weeks ago? Do we decide to go up even further and really get extreme and tag this? I mean, that would definitely be up there in ADRs. Again, we had a $14 range today. You know, it's not unheard of to have back-to-back repeat ADR days on the extreme. So, you know, potentially you do come up here, tag this for a little bit, then dance, and then go grab. Or we do none of that, right? And we could grab this lower level down here, which is also a, this would be a full other than outlying ADR down here at the lows. With the swing AV WAP and the 200-day simple moving average in that area. So interesting one on that front. And then next up, we have CSIQ. CSIQ was Canadian Solar, and did put in a couple of the swing AV WAPs on this one. It had two levels, but really when I was kind of skimming through this ahead of time, I mean, the one that would be of bigger interest, you know, would be this area down here. I mean, this has some evidence up here and some different pieces of material that we would look at. But really, the bigger zone in terms of factual-based evidence and a scoring perspective really gets down at that lower level down here at the 4272 to 4238. It would be a bit of a flat retest, you know, if we come back down into this area. So it would be one I'd have some caution on, and, you know, maybe wait towards the bottom edge or see us come in and you know, like we did with SPY today, come in, maybe dip in and take this area, but then quickly reclaim and shoot back out of there. Next on that list is going to be CHKP, which was Checkpoint Software, which is also interesting because there's net on there a little bit further down below. So getting into, if I remember correctly, you know, both these have to do with like networking and security and whatnot. Don't quote me on that. It should be an interesting one nonetheless. That bigger zone is up here at that 121 to 120.63 level, and you can see, you know, if you were to, you know, take some action on that, I mean, there's a decent amount of space, so you could maybe start in a little bit early. You see there's a pretty good size rejection here today, and I think if we look left, I mean, it's been, you know, been some rejections in this area and whatnot, so you can maybe start in something early, but just keep in mind, again, none of that is buy or sell recommendations by any means at all. We talked about BSX earlier, and since we talked about net just a minute ago, I'm just going to skip down to net and look at that. And I think we'll trim this one here. Today you can see the rest of these levels. You can flip through them. You can pull them up on your charts, and you've got all the price zones there to see what they look like. But net was an interesting one because it's got kind of a nice, you know, both daily anchor VWAP pinch, and we've got the corresponding swing anchor VWAP pinch on it as well. And so its zone at the highs also is up here. It's got the 20-day EMA. It's just above a supply and demand zone. It is interesting that 13 SMA in here is kind of holding it a little bit, and we'll just have to see what and how it reacts tomorrow at that 62 level. But net, again, be interesting. It's at that 6404 to 6355 level. So again, I think we'll cut that there. Hopefully these are proving helpful. Again, if folks have questions or comments, just drop them in the room or in the YouTube comment section below. If you feel like this is adding value, certainly, you know, let us know. Put the like thing out there. I'm sure it'll help, you know, understanding a bit about the YouTube and the how algorithms work, obviously. And we'll see. We're thinking about maybe doing a ninja video this weekend with some, again, kind of tips and tricks, you know, basic stuff like, hey, you want to be able to quickly add what we call a supply and demand zone. I just have that as Shift F2. And you can do things, you know, like click it and just hit delete and it's gone. So we might do something like that. There's a couple other things we want to work on from some algorithm perspective and indicators we want to get published out there, like these symmetrical extremes and the mappings and whatnot. So we'll have to see how that plays along. Again, if you all have any comments or thoughts or suggestions, you know, put them down in the comment section below and we'll do our best to respond to them. Thanks. Again, hope y'all have a good one, and we'll see you sometime this weekend with another video. Bye now.